Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, coast to coast, website thisweekinamerica.us. Great to have you with us on the program today. Back with us on today's program, Yvonne Heath. She's a nurse with a mission to help bring death out of the darkness and into our conversations and to create a culture of acceptance with less fear. With over 25 years' experience working in healthcare, she has witnessed a great deal of excessive suffering in our death-phobic society. She has also felt in her own life, inspired by those who have lived fully and died peacefully, she has chosen to share her knowledge and experience through authoring books and speaking to the world about the value of talking, planning, and preparing for grief, death, and dying before they arrive. By doing so, less will suffer. Her book is called Loving Your Life to Death: How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live life fully now. Yvonne Heath back with us on the program. Yvonne, always great to have you with us. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much, Rick. I'm thrilled to be back. I do have to say the book is Love Your Life to Death, although it is about loving your life to death.
Oh, did I make that Love Your Life to Death? And in fact, that's a website, yes, so it's okay. Important. LoveYourLifeToDeath.com. How to plan and prepare for end of life so you can live life fully now. This is interesting and a topic that really needs to be addressed. And Yvonne's been on 2 other programs. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, go to YouTube and iTunes, and you can watch and listen to those programs. This is so important, and it came to you, over this 25-year period as a nurse, you saw the consequences of what happens when you don't prepare for end of life and the decisions and the bitterness that follows. You've actually seen firsthand what can happen when you don't prepare for end of life.
Absolutely, Rick. And, as I continue this message and my journey, I've interviewed more and more people. And, I've sort of expanded my message to say grief arrives throughout our lives. And grief is something that, the ultimate grief for most people is death and dying and facing end of life of their life or those they love. But, we grieve throughout our lives. We grieve when friends leave, when divorce, loss of job, all kinds of things. And it's something that we just don't want to talk about, plan, or prepare for until it arrives. And when you're in the deep trenches of grief, whatever has brought that on, it is not the time to try to develop coping skills and strategies and, see what will help you navigate your way through it. The best time to do that is long before you're facing big grief. And so that's sort of the culture I aspire to help change. Let's talk about this and plan for it ahead of time, because the truth is that grief shows no mercy. It arrives unannounced and uninvited at any time.
It's interesting because as you listen to you talk and you read the book, Love Your Life to Death, the website, loveyourlifetodeath.com, intellectually, I'm understanding exactly what you're telling me. Yes, it's rational. It makes perfect sense. Emotionally, though, when you go to write, to start the program, to have the talk, to start the plan, it's sort of difficult. You become somewhat reticent at that point. Talk about in your experience when you decided, okay, I'm going to do this in my own life. How difficult was it for you to get started and have the talk and implement a plan?
Well, the first thing that, again, many people say, how do I do this? How do I approach other people? In my family, they're reluctant. But the piece that people are missing, they have to start with themselves. So if you actually start with, yourself and think, what will help me? I need to develop coping skills and strategies. And the big thing also is, what do I believe about life and death? And how can I create a soft landing for myself? What can I choose to believe about life, death, after, after, beyond death, that will create comfort in my life? And so when you do that self-reflection, you're not, trying to talk anybody into having the talk. You're just exploring your own beliefs or lack thereof. And then when you line all that up for yourself, it is so much. It just opens the door. When I did it in my own life, I felt empowered, and then it was that much easier to approach other people because I wasn't saying, healthcare professionals, we all encourage people to have all these talks. We haven't done it ourselves. I'll let you know that right now. Many of us haven't. I'm sorry, but it's like, do as I say, not as I do. And so when you change that and, you start with empowering yourself, the change is phenomenal. I felt so much more empowered. And even when I was speaking to patients or family, I could say, when I did my end of life plan and planning our lives as well, planning your life. I mean, this is about living fully and grieving well and dying well. It's the whole thing. But we need to take responsibility for ourselves to plan our lives and empower ourselves to grieve. And the other big thing is empower ourselves to be able to support others in their grieving process. So, do you know what the name of my talk now is? That I aspire to take we're taking our show on the road, and I aspire to speak to companies and everybody and anybody who will listen. The name of my talk is I Don't Know What to Say.
And
Because
that's
when someone is
interesting because,
grieving,
yeah, that's sort of a new focus that you've got. And it's really
yeah,
fascinating because all of us, it seems like when we're dealing with somebody that is going through the grieving process, and sometimes maybe we don't deal with them because we don't really know what to say. And you're now facing this. And again, talking about that. And you actually, as you mentioned, going on the road to get all the information available at the website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. Have book will travel. You go worldwide across the United States as well as Canada. A lot of great information. You can sign up for the newsletter as well by going to the website. But talk about that because for so many of us, it's difficult. And you're basically saying just be there. That in itself is really helpful to someone going through the grieving process.
absolutely. And the thing is my mantra is just show up. And that's, when people see someone in pain or grieving and they're ill prepared themselves, you see, that's part of the big problem, the missing piece. People are coming to the table, healthcare professionals, friends, family, and they're scared to death of death. They are not well prepared to help themselves navigate through grief. So, of course, when they see somebody that they love who is suffering or who is, having a difficult time, many people do is run the other way because they say, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. So they do nothing. I just say that's never the answer. We need to understand and allow our humanness. People say, oh, well, what if I show up and I cry? I say, well, then get yourself a tissue.
Yes.
What if I make them cry? Then give them a hug. We need to be okay with being uncomfortable. We need to be okay with knowing we can't fix it. And I say, just lead with your heart, but just show up. And of course, I make sure I say, I don't mean randomly, like in the middle of the night, unannounced, saying, oh, well, Yvonne said to show up. Here I am. Please don't do that. Well, Yvonne said, no. I mean, make that phone call. People say, oh, I don't know if I should call. If you're saying that to yourself, make that phone call. If that person who is suffering or grieving doesn't want to talk, maybe they won't pick up the phone. Maybe they'll speak very briefly. But, every single time I have called and I've said to myself, because I still have to say, oh, I don't know if I should call. And I say, no, just show up and I call. And most times people are so grateful. And I don't say, there's nothing magical to say. That's the other thing. There's nothing magical to say. I say, you know what? I care and I'm so sad and I just want to hug you. And, what can I do right now for you? What can I do? Not call me if you need me. What can I do? Do you want me to take the garbage out? Because, life continues on even though someone's grieving. Grief doesn't care what else you have going on. Grief doesn't care if you have cancer or, you're going through a separation. Your dog could still die. I mean, we don't need to live in fear, but let's empower ourselves.
Yvonne Heath, our guest on This Week in America. The book is Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live life fully now. Our website is loveyourlifetodeath.com. It's an excellent website, great information there. The book is full of great information and stories that will make all of this clear to you, like, well, this is what happens when we don't prepare. You mentioned the new focus in talking to companies and business groups. It's interesting because so often someone will go back to work, not necessarily after losing a loved one, not necessarily because they really want to go back to work. It's an economic necessity for them to go back to work. So they really are dealing with going back and still in the grieving process. Once they get back into the workplace, then everybody's sort of uncomfortable. And you address that. How do we go about in a workplace welcoming somebody back and being there to support them at the same time?
Well, Rick, it's very interesting because it's sort of something that I realize, as far as I know, we don't really do in our society. Number one, talking about planning and preparing our staff, our coworkers, our managers, and I feel we need this at all levels, don't we? When someone is grieving, isn't it wonderful if you feel that everybody at every level is there and empowered to show up for you? Because oftentimes it's like in a school, oh, well, go talk to the guidance counselor. But I mean, if you're the person, that grieving person cares about and feels comfortable with, shouldn't you be prepared and to support them? Or perhaps a coworker. It's all great to go speak to the grief counselor after. But I mean, if you're in the elevator with that person who just divorced or something just happened, they have a health issue even, or yes, faced the death of a loved one, are you going to stand there and be so awkward and ill prepared and to say, this is the longest ride of my life, get
Yes.
me off this elevator? We can do better. And I just say, lead with your heart. There's no magic answer. Just show up, hug the person. And, if you know somebody, like they love coffee at Starbucks, get them a Starbucks cup and a big hug. I mean, it's something that we need to get better at, just showing up, and ask the person, this is a hard journey. This is hard. What can we do to at least help create a soft landing for you in this work environment? And let's say they're at a cubicle and they just fall apart because they've had a grief attack. And it could be 6 months later. What we need to do? We need to go up, pat them on the back and say, I will take your phone calls for 10, 15 minutes, however much time you need. Here's some Kleenex, go get a coffee. What do most people do? Oh God.
Yes.
Look the other way.
Yes.
We're just so uncomfortable, like, Joe's crying or Nancy's crying, I don't know what to do. We need to do that. And, we talk about palliative care and hospice, and they are all wonderful. A lot of people, when their husband or wife died of a heart attack, there's no hospice, none of that is involved. But yet they still have to go back to the workplace, and they don't get very much time off. How is it in the States, Rick? I mean, you don't have a lot of time off.
Do not have a
after
lot of
that.
time off. No.
So most people are going back because they have to, not because they feel emotionally ready. So wouldn't it be wonderful to feel like you have empowered, compassionate workplaces and companies so that they are, you can go back to work. And if you fall apart for a few minutes or people will be there to help you pick up the pieces. I think this is a very important, overlooked piece. I really do.
What changes have you seen? You've got the death cafes where you actually go out and you talk and you've been out doing workshops and talking one-on-one. And with the internet, you can do consultations with people literally all across the world. What are you seeing? Are you seeing a culture change maybe that we've now got an open mind and it's like, yeah, we really need to deal with death, grief, and in a different way?
Yes. Well, the Death Cafe is extraordinary, and that is actually a movement that John Underwood from the UK had started. So that's that's an international movement. So yes, we have one locally, and it's just a place where people can come and chat about death. Maybe they've been through something that, they know that they'd like it to be different next time. So they're trying to empower themselves. But I have to say the biggest thing for me has been, just last week I did a speaking engagement, and a lady approached me and said, I've heard you speak before and I have your book, and my friend who's in her 60s is dying, and your book has really helped me to show up for her. And she also said, my friend and her son were really suffering through this, and I told her to read your book. And, I felt a little, I don't know, this woman is in the dying process. And I thought, geez, I don't know if this is the right read for her. But apparently it really helped her to focus and change and focus on living her life to the very end, even though the end was near. And so I just felt amazed by that. And another young paramedic who's has a brain tumor, and his sister was waiting for him while he was in surgery, and she was reading my book, and I couldn't believe it. And then she got 5 more copies. So I think that there is a cultural change, and with the blogs I've started and the vlogs, my new word, video blogs. I didn't even know what a vlog was, but I'm vlogging now, Rick. I'm very hip.
And they are very well done, and you can find those at the website. Very well done.
Yes. Well, I'm just, you know what, I'm sharing my experience because I tell people I'm just learning as I go along too. And, I shared about when our dog, Kuba, our beloved black lab, I knew he was 12 and he was starting to fail. And I was like, okay, I'm facing the stuff that it's great for me to talk to people and have written my book, but now I need to walk my talk here. And so with Kuba, I shared a video. I said, we don't know how to navigate through this. This is the first time I've had to decide, to euthanize a dog. Or our pug, Frankie, who stars in the book, she died on her own. But I said, Kuba's starting to suffer here and we can't do that. So I walked my talk. We talked about, planned and prepared with our 11-year-old twins, Jaden and Tanner. We said, do you want Kuba buried in the yard? Do you want Kuba cremated? What do you want? They wanted him buried in the yard so they could go and sit and speak with him. So we created a sacred pet space, which I did take a picture of. And it's beautiful. And actually, this lovely gentleman just made us a little headstone that says Kuba, our great dog. And so we put that there. And, we had even, as weird as it sounds, I said, when Kuba dies that day, I need to be there for him. And I don't want to have to do anything else but fall apart and cry, because I knew my heart was going to be broken. And so before, we dug the grave, we prepared everything. And I said, I think this is really weird that we're doing this, but I don't want to do it that day. And here's our poor dog walking around. We're saying, like, there's no rush, Kuba, honest. We're just getting ready.
Yes.
But imagine digging a grave that day. It would have been awful. So we just held him and loved him till his very last breath and walked our talk, and everything else was done. So we can do this differently. We really can.
There are so many great lessons available at the website. The book is Love Your Life to Death, How to Plan and Prepare for End of Life so you can live life fully now. The website is loveyourlifetodeath.com. Yvonne Heath, our guest on the program. And again, mentioning she does speaking engagements, workshops, one-on-one consultations, the blog, the vlog, an ongoing resource. See, I just said, maybe the first time I've actually said that on the program, but it really so well done, and a variety of topics. We've all gone through the loss of a pet, and you talk about your experiences in going through that. It's a great website. Once again, loveyourlifetodeath.com. Yvonne, it is always a pleasure to have you on the program. I love what you're doing. And if you take, just remember 3 words out of the program today, just show up. If you do that for somebody, that will guide you through. And it's interesting, you're telling us there's really not a set 5 things that you do, and these are all fail-safe. It's just show up and sort of let your heart tell you what to do next.
Follow your heart. Lead with your heart.
Just show up. Website is loveyourlifetodeath.com. Yvonne Heath, our guest, back with us on the program. Always look forward to having you on the program. Thank you for being with us once again.
Thank you so much, Rick. Always a pleasure to be here.
You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Information there available for our website, on the website for our guest today, Yvonne Heath. The book is called Love Your Life to Death, How to Prepare and for End of Life so you can live life fully. We're back after these messages.